Jason had been driving for a rideshare app for almost a year. In that time, he had seen it all: drunken businessmen slurring their addresses, couples arguing in the back seat, even a man who insisted the government was tracking him through his dental fillings. But nothing had ever unsettled him like the ride he picked up that night. It was nearly 2 a.m., and Jason was about to log off when a request popped up. The pickup location was on the outskirts of town, near an abandoned industrial district. It was a long trip across the city, and the payout was unusually high. Jason hesitated. That part of town was nothing but crumbling warehouses and empty streets. He had never picked up a passenger from there before. Still, the extra cash was tempting. He accepted the ride and started driving. The pickup. The closer he got, the quieter everything became. No streetlights. No other cars. Just the steady hum of his engine and the occasional flicker of a dying neon sign from a boarded-up shop. Then, in the glow of his headlights, he saw the passenger. A man. He was standing near the curb, perfectly still. He wore an old-fashioned black suit, the kind people were buried in, and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed most of his face. His posture was stiff, almost unnatural, like a mannequin someone had left outside. Jason felt a cold prickle at the back of his neck. Something was wrong. Most passengers glanced at their phones, waved, or at least acknowledged their driver. But this man just stood there. Jason hesitated, fingers hovering over the cancel ride button. But before he could press it, the back door clicked open. The man slid inside. Jason swallowed hard. "Hey, how's it going?" Silence. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The man sat perfectly still, hands folded neatly in his lap. His skin was disturbingly pale, almost gray. Jason tried again. "Long night?" Nothing. The air inside the car felt heavier. A faint pressure built in Jason's chest. He forced a chuckle. "Not much of a talker, huh?" Still nothing. Jason glanced at the app. The destination was a residential address across town, about a 30-minute drive. He put the car in drive and pulled onto the road. The ride. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by darkness. The stretch of highway ahead was long and empty, just the occasional flicker of a passing street light. Jason had driven night shifts long enough to know that silence could be peaceful. But this wasn't that. This was unnatural. Every few minutes, Jason peeked at the rearview mirror. The man never moved. Not a shift in posture. Not a tilt of his head. Just perfectly still, like he was carved from stone. Jason's hands tightened on the wheel. The first real sign that something was wrong came about 10 minutes into the ride. The temperature dropped. Not just a little, a sharp, unnatural plunge. One moment, the air was warm and comfortable. The next, it was ice cold. Jason exhaled, and his breath fogged up in front of him. He frowned, reaching for the car's climate controls. He hadn't turned on the AC. But now, the air was frigid, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Then he noticed something even worse. The mirror. The man was no longer sitting in the middle of the seat. He was closer. Jason hadn't heard him move. Hadn't felt the seat shift. But there he was. Directly behind the driver's seat. Jason's stomach twisted. He flicked his eyes back to the road, heart hammering. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe. A whisper. Soft. Garbled. Jason's fingers clenched the wheel. Sorry, man, what was that?" The whispering continued. It didn't sound like a voice. It sounded like several voices overlapping. Static and hissing and something else beneath it, something wet. Jason's pulse pounded in his ears. "Look, if you need to say something, speak up, all right?" The whispering stopped. Jason exhaled shakily. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. Maybe. A breath. Right behind his ear. Jason jerked the wheel. The car swerved violently into the next lane. His heart slammed against his ribs as he struggled to regain control. His breath came in short, panicked gasps. The mirror had tilted slightly in the chaos. Jason saw the back seat clearly now. It was empty. Jason's skin went ice cold. He didn't hear the door open. He didn't hear footsteps. But the man was gone. A sharp buzz from his phone made him jump. He glanced down. Ryder has canceled the trip. Jason let out a shaky laugh, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. This had to be a prank. Some elaborate, sick joke. His phone buzzed again. A message. "Thank you for the ride. See you again soon." Jason's hands trembled. The message had no sender. The car was still moving. The highway stretched out into darkness. Then he saw it. A figure in the distance. Standing in the middle of the road. Jason's stomach lurched. His headlights swept over the figure as he got closer. It was the passenger. Standing perfectly still, just as he had at the pickup point. Jason's breath hitched. That was impossible. He slammed the brakes. The car screeched to a stop. The man didn't move. Jason's hands shook. He reached for his phone, fingers fumbling to dial 911. Then the back door opened. Jason froze. A cold wave of dread crashed over him. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. He could feel it. The presence. The wrongness. The whispering started again. Louder this time. Jason squeezed his eyes shut. "You're not real. You're not real. You're not real." The whispering stopped. A long silence. Then, a voice. Right behind him. "Don't stop next time." Jason's body went rigid. His heart pounded so hard he thought his ribs would crack. Slowly, so slowly, he turned his head toward the back seat. There was no one there. But the seatbelt was still buckled. Jason didn't wait. He slammed the car into drive and sped off, heart hammering, hands gripping the wheel in a death grip. The night swallowed the road behind him. As he drove, his phone buzzed one last time. A new ride request. Pickup location, his house. Jason's breath caught in his throat. The rearview mirror flickered. And in the reflection, a pair of hollow black eyes stared back at him.